Good. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first Kaedim Office Hours. Today I'll be doing a demo on how to use the app, just like creating an asset, basic stuff. And I'll also be checking the chat to see if you guys leave any comments. Feel free to ask questions about anything, and we will talk about it. Okay. So there's already one question here. They said I used the text to 3D functionality, but it gave me a 2D image instead of a 3D model. So the text to 3D, it will first generate an image. Let's say, what should we do? what should we generate? Let's see. Do you have any ideas?
Sunflower.
Sunflower, okay. Simple background. So this will generate an image that you will then have to, you have to set the settings first, and then you can generate into 3D, and that's what actually gives you the 3D output. So once this generates, obviously it's not generated yet through the Kaedim app, so you'll have to set the settings here, name it sunflower. We can go for high and click generate. So generating a 2D image doesn't give you generate an asset yet. You'll have to click generate on the bottom right. When I go to my saved assets and filter to recently added, my screen stays white. Okay, that's definitely a bug on our end, so we'll note that down and have it fixed soon. I'm generating 99% of my images from Midjourney to Dolly, and they're all getting rejected by Kaedim. How should I generate images so they work? Just like I showed you for this prompt, I did 3D render, simple background. I would check the input requirements that we have here in the create page to make sure that you have all of these checked for your input images. So make sure it's a single object, white background. Sometimes too, the generations don't get processed because the generation quality isn't high enough for the input image that you're submitting. So we have this button here that you can click, and you can compare the qualities of of the different generation qualities. So obviously standard is the lowest detailed, and it doesn't quite get all of the details from the input image. So just keep that in mind when you're generating an asset. See how simple or complex your input image is and choose accordingly so that it doesn't get dismissed. Cool, so we'll wait for this. And you can also check out our showcase to see a bunch of different assets with different generation qualities. If it'll load. Let's see. So we try to update this at least weekly. These are just sample assets for you to look at to see the different fidelities of the generation qualities. So we have high quality here, And obviously for more detailed assets like this, we would use Ultra. And I want to give you guys a rundown of all of the features within the 3D Studio. So I'm just going to use a sample asset over here that I've generated. So if we open 3D Studio, we'll be able to see the input image, the dimensions. You can input the height in the create page, and this will scale your model proportionally. We can also show the wireframe to check the topology. And I think one of our most useful features is the iterate model tool. So essentially, if you want any edits on your 3D model, you can draw on the input image, point out anything that you want to change, and just make sure to describe exactly what you would like to change on the model. You can also take a screenshot, and you can take a screenshot of your 3D model and upload it over here so that you can point out specific parts of the model as well. And if you want to add a new image, you can also upload an image of the object that you want to add. For example, if I wanted to add an emblem over here, I can upload that image and type over here, add emblem on top of car, and that will add that emblem onto the 3D model, and you'll see it updated in your history. So for example, let's see, this one. So you can see all of the actions I've done on the 3D model. So first I generated it, and then I did an iteration. So my iteration was to add a crown on the nutcracker, and I added an image of the crown and said put it on top of his head, and this is what came up. And yeah, you can also see when you color the models. Here I have two different colored ones. So each version is saved, which I think is really useful. Okay. Okay, someone asks, are they fully AI generated or mostly human generated? So it goes through a process. We can see here on our asset. So first it processes it. Our AI creates, yes, Constantina just answered. We have an internal art team that does the quality check to make sure that these assets are usable, but of course they always start with AI generations. Okay. I downloaded all of my files in OBJ, which creates them as mesh objects. Is there another file type or program that I can use to make them solid, editable objects? So they should be editable either way. Which program are you importing them in? So The meshes usually come separate. So as you can see here, this part of the mesh is separate from the wheel. Fusion 360. Okay, I am not too familiar with that program. Usually if you import into Blender an OBJ or FBX, these separate meshes will still be identified as separate unless you merge them as one. So they should be editable. I would check with maybe the program that you're using's documentation to see which format works best. What file type do you use to get separate mesh parts? OBJ, FBX, these two will have your meshes be separate. Yeah, we can do a Google input. Let's see. What should we do? What should we look up?
The table.
Bubble base. I don't know what that means. Yeah, of course. If there are any specific formats for the program that you're using now, obviously we want to keep Kaedim accessible to your workflows. So just suggest it on the Discord if you're a part of Discord. Take a random pic from Google from Bubble Base. I would like to see that. Okay, let's see. Is it this character? Just want to make sure. Okay, I will. So you can copy the image. Once you have that in your clipboard, you can click this. And since the background is already transparent, obviously this will just upload. But if you do have a background, we have an automatic background removal feature so that when it uploads, the background is transparent. Okay. So this character is pretty simple, but let's do high just to make sure that it comes out as accurate as possible. Hopefully it's the right one. I'm not sure if that's what you meant. So this character is obviously 2D and there are not many views. Usually if you are uploading a character, we recommend doing multiple views just to make sure that it's accurate. But since we have limited images of this character, then a front view will suffice. Okay, hold on. I think my Wi-Fi is a bit slow, so it's taking a while to, okay, it generated, so let's see. Is there a discount code we can use to get a pricing discount? Currently, we're working on a more accessible plan. Um, so I would just keep an eye on that. Why is it not?
Internet is slow.
Okay,
See if you can refresh.
yeah, I did. The Wi-Fi is a bit slow, so apologies for the loading. Okay. If you guys have more questions, all right. We can go back to talking about the features. So I told you about the iterate feature. Let's go into this character. We also have, okay. We also have the UV unwrap, so this automatically unwraps the UVs. This makes it easier for texturing, if you're familiar with the process. And it is automatically, if you download your model and open up Blender, you will see that it's unwrapped. I like to know what the mesh looks like. Okay, so to do that, you can do show wireframe and you'll be able to see the topology of your mesh, if that's what you mean. And for this character, it's already colored, but we can go to, okay, let's try coloring this character again, just so I can show you guys. So we have the fill color tool here. Essentially, you can click on a mesh and move this slider around to pick your color. And you can do that individually, or we recommend merging your meshes before doing the fill color tool, so that so that the meshes are already joined, and it makes it so much easier to apply materials or colors to your model. So for example, if you know that you're going to be coloring this whole hat the same color, then you can just merge that. Let's try it out. And it will submit as one mesh. Oh, okay. So if we look again, we can see that it's now one mesh. Manual grouping. Yes, so that's what I just showed. You can either click on each mesh manually and then click submit to merge them, or you can use automatic grouping to merge the meshes. Okay. We also have different materials to choose from. So you can find that under color effects. We have glossy, transparent, mirror, glossy metal. And if you apply these materials to your model by clicking save, you can then download either the FBX or the OBJ and MTL files. And once you import those models into Blender or any program, the materials will also be imported. To manually temporarily group instead of irreversible mesh merge. Yes, so all of the versions of your model will be saved. So as you can see, this updated, and you can go to a previous version of your model and the meshes will still be separate. So yes, we are working on more accessible price points, as Constantina has mentioned. But we have a very helpful customer support team that always tries to make sure that you have your desired model. So if it doesn't come out as you would have liked, we always have a team ready to help you out and fix your model. Okay, it seems like our assets are still processing. So another thing to note is you can batch generate assets, but this, for example, this asset won't start generating until after this one is finished. So they don't generate simultaneously, but it will be in the queue. And then you can also upload a 3D model as long as you have an FBX file and as long as it's not larger than 50 MB. And once you upload that 3D model, it will show up as an asset and you'll be able to use all of the features that we have here on your model. We also have automatic texturing. And we have 3 styles to choose from. So our texturing is still in beta, but we encourage you to try it out. So projection is basically, projection. It projects the texture onto your model. So usually this is less detailed than the other texturing styles, and it works better if you have both the front view and the back view. Stylized is basically chooses the local color of your input image. So for example, if we submitted an input image of this nutcracker, it will select the color that is most apparent and apply that to the mesh. And PBR is for more realistic textures such as wood, metal, etc. So here is another more complex image just because it has more elements to it. So our input image was fairly simple. The style was simple, but since there were a lot of different elements, I chose Ultra for this. And you can see how the topology is a lot denser than a standard generation, such as this one. Can you do an example of how to make an item textured like plush fabric? Sure. So as I said, we do have an automatic texturing feature. Let me see. So you're looking for more realistic material, correct? Also, if you're interested, you can drop, where you are currently based in the chat. We always love to see where all of our users are from. So while we wait for our assets to generate, we can go through these older assets that I've generated before. As you can see, there's a lot of Christmas content. So if you're familiar with our social media, we were doing 3D Days of Christmas, and all of these assets were generated for that series. So yeah, lots of Christmas content and a shoe. Okay. Looks like our sunflower is ready, so let's take a look. Show the wireframe. So yeah, I think it came out great. What do you guys think? So we do have a lot of both indie and larger game studios using Kaedim. I'm not sure what you mean by new process, but it does help streamline the 3D workflow. And if you have assets that are if you have a lot of game assets that you need to finish in a short amount of time, then obviously Kaedim has been really helpful for game developers, especially indie game developers that don't have a lot of time and resources. We also have we're also planning on adding more case studies to our website. But if you check out case studies on the Kaedim website, you can see how Upland specifically used Kaedim for their projects. So let's take a look at how these meshes have been grouped. And we can also start coloring this, or we can start, okay, a stuffed animal plush. Let's see. We will probably have to generate a new asset, but I can try and see if I have an old one. This one. It would be easier if I had an input image that wasn't a drawing, but we can try to see. Okay, let's see if we can find a similar one. Okay, maybe this one. So PBR is best for more consistent materials like wood and, as I said, metal. But we can try and see, we can try and see how it works on this one. Where did it go? Where did our texture go? This stuff. Oh, I see. Okay, I will just submit that as PBR and awesome. Okay, so our bubble base is still generating. So, okay, and our texture has been accepted, so we'll just wait for that. In the meantime, I can show you guys how to share an asset. So once your asset has been generated, you can click over here, enable sharing. You can copy the link, and once that link has been copied, this is what it will look like. So they can see the asset here in this viewer. They can check the input, wireframe, dimensions. And if you color your asset, that will show up here as well. So we can actually try that on one of our colored assets. This one. So all of the materials and colors will show up in the shared viewer. Also, if you guys are interested, you can also put in the chat what type of assets you'd like to see for future live streams as well. So PBR usually takes longer than projection or stylized texturing just because it is it's a more high quality style of texturing. This is a good example of PBR texturing. The input image looked like this, and so once the asset was generated, I went to automatic texturing, PBR, and I chose use original input image. And so you can see how this is this looks a lot more realistic than, say, this stylized texturing. This was the input image. Are these polygons, is there a limit? No, there is no limit. So here, if you choose a generation quality, you'll see that the max poly count automatically changes. So the max poly count for Ultra changes to 300K, but you can always change this to be a higher number if you need. We do have examples of Ultra characters in the showcase. So this is a good example. So it can make full characters. To make sure that all of your input images get processed correctly, again, make sure to take a look at the input guidelines. So real animals, foliage, those likely won't be processed. But you can always try. Sometimes you can be surprised. We also have some recent updates. So we've changed our add-ons pricing. So now it's a subscription and you can use the add-ons however many times you'd like. So the old pricing was that you would have to pay per use. So this is super helpful if you use add-ons a lot, and you can use it unlimited every month. Yes, we can definitely do a sailing ship for future streams. You can submit up to 5. You can submit up to 6 images. Does that mean different angles of the same image? Yes, it can be, or it can be a zoomed in photo of, for example, if you've submitted an input image of a car, it can be, front view, side view, top view. And if you want an area to be more detailed, you can zoom in on that input image, and that will specify enough to make sure that that area is as accurate as possible. So let me show you how the iteration feature works as well. So we generated this asset, and in iterate we uploaded an image of a Santa hat and said add it on top of his head. And as you can see, it creates a new version and it adds that mesh onto your model. Can the plush texture be added to the 3D object so that when 3D printed, it will give the impression of a plush item? So no, because the texturing doesn't alter the mesh of your model, which the mesh will be 3D printed and not the texture. So if you're thinking of 3D printing with a plush-like texture, then you'll have to submit an input image with a plush texture, and that will be translated to your Kaedim output, and that will then be able to be 3D printed. So we're still waiting on some of these. So if you guys have any more questions, please feel free. I'm curious what everyone's use cases are for Kaedim. How are you planning on using the app? So currently there's no free trial. But if you're planning to kind of test Kaedim, you can always try our pay as you go, which you'll be able to buy individual credits and you won't have to subscribe to a plan. Can we see the line art outputs? Okay. So for example, I drew this snowman. So it came out with this 3D model. We also have some other examples. For this one, I submitted multiple input images, so this was actually a character turnaround. As you can see, it was just like a sketch. And so multiple views of the character are really helpful. And yes, as John mentioned, we have a lot of different plugins for different programs that you might be using. So you can find all of the info and how to use them on our documentation. Trying to make monsters for my indie game. Cool. So yeah, that's definitely doable. If it is on Roblox, I'm not sure how dense the poly count is usually for Roblox characters, but I would guess that standard or high would be enough depending on how complex your designs are. This is another line art input image, very simple. It came out with this. This was generated on standard, so you can see that the poly count or the polygons are a lot less dense than the ultra generations. 10,000 poly count or less. Yes, so standard generations are 1 credit. So if you'd like to try it out, you can try pay as you go and buy a single credit, and you can test out the app. Is there anything else you guys would like to see? We also have generate LODs. So if you, for example, generate an asset on ultra or high, you can lower the poly count. And let's say our current poly count is 44,000. We can go down to 30,000, and that will create a new version of your asset with a lower poly count. Yes, we can do anime characters in future live streams. So the average, how long is average process speed? That depends on the generation quality that you've chosen. So for example, this was generated on Ultra. It had a lot of detail. So for these, it usually takes longer. Standard can take up to 15 minutes. So those are, the more simple 3D models. So it really depends on how complex your input image is and the generation quality you've chosen. Sorry, I'm just going through the chat. In the meantime, I can keep showing you guys some older assets, and if you have any questions, please feel free. Could you try to describe? Yeah, so our text to 3D works just like any, AI image generation. You just have to try to describe it as best as possible, and you can generate an image. So just as an example, we can do mug. 3D render. And you can generate as many times as you'd like. I can show you an example of how to regenerate. So if you want to regenerate your image, just click regenerate. Okay, came out. Another thing I would like to mention is our new team functionality. So we now do support teams, so you can collaborate with team members. If you're part of a team and you all use Kaedim, you can collaborate, and you'll find that through settings under organizations. The orc character in Ultra, I would say 45 to an hour, yes. You also have a similar character. So the processing time really just depends on how detailed your model is and the generation quality that you've chosen. We also now have a customer support feature on the app, and if you have any general questions, you can find the links here, or you can message us directly. If you're part of our Discord as well, please feel free to let us know if you're having any issues. We are always happy to help. So another cool thing I would like to mention is Kaedim can make 3D models out of floor plans. If you're looking to prototype a game and get a really quick environment, you can just draw like a bunch of lines to describe a floor plan, and Kaedim will automatically register that as a floor plan and make it into this 3D model. So, just so there's no confusion, we have a lot of input image examples in our documentation. A good thing to note is that if you are in 3D animation, or if you want to animate your characters, we recommend having them in a T or A pose. So if you're generating an image through AI, you can simply just say this character in T pose, and that makes it very easy to rig later on. A lot of users try to iterate their models into a different pose, but usually those get dismissed. So it's easier to generate a model that is already in T or A pose in the first place. It would be nice to see how Mona Lisa turns out in 3D here. We can try that in the future, definitely. That would be very interesting. Yes, the floor plan was on standard, I believe. Let me double check. Yes, it's a standard generation. So, yeah, definitely very convenient for, environments or mazes in your case. So, while we're waiting, I can keep talking about our um, inputs. So we have a lot of different examples here for you to take a look at. This is the example that we see in our compare qualities little pop-up. And since images that are real animals or real foliage usually aren't processed, um, we recommend doing more stylized inputs like these stylized trees. This photo will likely be dismissed. So that's just another thing to take note of, especially if you're generating these images through Dolly or some other AI program. Um, so yeah, you can submit a single image with multiple views. This won't be dismissed as multiple objects. It will be recognized as one object in different views, or you can submit them, separately. If I submit multiple objects in an image, would that work? Um, it depends. So if it's multiple separate objects, then that would most likely be dismissed. We recommend separating them um, on Photoshop or some other program before you submit. Um, but if, for example, your character has a lot of accessories, such as this owl, he has these goggles and a lab coat. As long as you submit in either high or ultra, it will be processed. Um, so yeah, it just depends on what those multiple objects are, I guess. If you have a specific image that you'd like to describe, you can also add that in the chat. But for example, if your character has, a prop, this will not be processed just because this is recognized as a separate object. So you can just cut that out and then separate it or generate it on its own. Yeah. Let's take a look at our other assets. Is there anything you guys would like to see specifically? In the future, we'd like to go more in depth on each of our features, obviously. But for now, we just wanted to give a general basic tutorial on how to use the app. But it would definitely help if you guys have any specific questions to make sure that we address those in the future as well. Okay, let's go back to our showcase. So this is accessible to everyone. You don't have to be logged in or signed up to check out this showcase. You can just go to our website and click showcase. And that should take you to the showcase page. Also, if you're sharing an asset, anyone can view it. They don't have to be logged in either. So the 3D viewer that I showed you earlier, this can be seen by anyone. Alright, let's see. Sometimes you have to refresh. Let's wait for it to load. How are the texture maps set up? Can you edit in Substance Painter? Yes, you can edit them in Substance Painter. And in Blender or whatever program you're using. Another thing to note is that if you are part of a team, each individual member will also have to purchase their own credits. Do you guys have any more questions? Anything you'd like to see in the future? So all of these, most of these generations were actually text to 3D. So these were all fully generated with Kaedim, including the input image. Auto texture, auto texture is one of our features. If you remember from earlier, I was showing the different types. You can also read up on that in our documentation, just so you have a better idea of what each texture style will give you. Let me see if I can find it. Here. So yes, we have some examples. Auto texture is basically that it automatically textures your models. So you can also upload your own 3D model and have it textured by Kaedim. So these are some of the examples. And if you missed it, we have a good example of PBR texturing in our assets as well. So 1 credit to texture or color your models. So we recently just updated our texture and add-ons pricing. So the add-ons include UV unwrap, auto texturing, and generate LODs. So it's no longer 1 credit per texturing try. It's now a subscription, and you can do it for an unlimited amount every month. And it doesn't cost anything to color your models either, so you can just go over to fill color, click on a mesh, color it this way, and that will still be downloadable, and the colors will show up once you import the models onto Blender or any other program. Cool. So I saw a pop-up over here that said that our asset was ready. So let's take a look. There he is. So let us know what you think. I think this is a good example. Very 2D flat character. Obviously it helps to have multiple views, but 1 view is always enough. And I think it worked pretty well. What do you guys think? And we've also just dropped a link in the chat to apply for free credits. So if you're interested in using Kaedim, please fill that out. Nice. We're glad you're happy with the model. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining and asking questions. We had a great time. And we'd also like to share this asset with you. Not sure what happened there. So you can view it in your own 3D viewer. Let's see, how do I do that? We'll find a way to share this asset with you if you're part of our Discord, or we can post it on our social media afterwards. Yeah, thank you guys for staying and interacting. Hopefully, we'll see you in future streams. And definitely keep in touch. We have socials, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, obviously. And if you are on one of our plans, you can also join us on Discord. Thanks so much. We'll also be posting a recording of this, and we'll be sure to send that out as well. Thank you.